Welcome everyone to this webinar on saving energy on dairy farms, looking at quick wins and how to plan for long-term savings. First, I'd like to have an introduction here from Elissa McNamara from Dairy Australia. Elissa, over to you.
Thanks, Jarrod. As Jarrod said, my name is Elissa McNamara. I'm the National Lead for Climate and Energy at Dairy Australia. And that means my job is to help dairy farmers with both adaptation to climate change and also understanding and reducing your emissions profitably. So this webinar is a part of a larger suite of work that we've been doing to update and develop new resources for farmers in this area. We've been working with A2EP on updating all of the energy efficiency and renewable energy resources. So farmers have got some really good guidance there on what can work, how much you can expect to save for how much investment, what your payback periods might be, and also some tips and tricks so that you get the best solution for your business. So as we launch our upcoming climate campaign from Dairy Australia over the next couple of weeks, you will start to see all of these new resources flowing with links. So hopefully you will find those very useful. And now back to Jarrod to take us through some excellent energy and money saving tips.
Thank you so much, Elissa. Yes, my name is Jarrod Leak. I'm the CEO for the Australian Alliance for Energy Productivity. And I'd like to start today with an acknowledgement of the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to the elders of the past, present and into the future. So here we are today, and thank you very much for joining us over your lunch. And here we go for an hour and a half discussion and dive into energy and saving energy on farm. We're going to look at quick wins and how to plan for long-term savings. Hopefully, we're going to be finding a few $1,000s of savings for you to achieve really easily. A2EP is a quick introduction. This is the Australian Alliance for Energy Productivity, which I'm the CEO of. We're a non-for-profit organisation with a lovely broad reach of members here that share our vision to improving energy productivity and for smart and fast decarbonisation of Australia's industry. Energy productivity, I'm sure you've heard of energy efficiency before, but we like to talk about energy productivity. The main reason is because that's what connects with business. You're not always in there just to save. You're there to produce things. We're here to produce milk. And if all we cared about is saving energy, we wouldn't be making beautiful things like ice cream that require more energy. So we'd like to talk about productivity, and that's a much broader sense of the energy term, and it's getting more dollars from less gigajoules. And that's very much then we focus on production and yield and the value of the products that comes from what you're putting your energy into. So with that lens, we hope this really helps you identify the savings and helps you act on them. So joining me today is Gabriel Hakim. Gabriel is a well-known personality in the dairy industry, worked in there for many, many years and has been to more dairy farms than I'll say I've had hot dinners. Very nice to have Gabriel here joining me today, and that both of us are going to take you through what we know of on-farm energy audits and energy systems within farms. And let's kick off with Gabriel taking us through the energy usage. If you've got to know where that energy is going, if you want to look at those savings. Gab, do you want to kick us off with where the energy is being?
Okay, thanks, Jarrod. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I think today is a good opportunity to look at some basic stuff in terms of things that people can do relatively easily, and they're usually easy gets. But before we start, the common thing that sort of gets bandied around is a misunderstanding or a confused understanding about where the energy is actually being used at the dairy. And so what I put together here is a bit of a snapshot on where the energy is being used. And based on different activity areas, the major energy users, of course, are to do with milk cooling, and whether you've got a conventional milking system or a AMS or robots and so forth, milk cooling is one of the major activity areas where energy is being used. The second one is water heating. Most all dairies use heated water in some respect. And so that's another area which should be the focus for most farms. The third area is milk harvesting, and that really is centered around milk pumps, vacuum pumps, air compressors that run stall gates, those sort of things. That's the third area of focus for today. The other areas such as lighting, feed systems, pumping around water around for stock and domestic, they're using low levels of energy use. So the main focus for us today is those three key areas which represent somewhere around 75 to 80% of the energy use of the dairy. Bear in mind that I'm focusing on the dairy because for some people, irrigation, energy irrigation often be 3 or 4 or 5 times the energy and cost use of the dairy. But today we're just going to focus on the dairy. And for those of you that are not sure about whether the energy being used on your farm, a good way to start to understand it is to do an energy audit that will help you identify where the electricity is used on your farm.
Thanks, Gab. And so, yeah, we have that 3 main areas. So we're not talking about irrigation here today, which, as Gab said, can be a lot more. And we're not going to talk about the simple stuff like LEDs, changing your lighting to LEDs. It's really easy to do, but the savings are going to be quite small, and you may not even notice it on your bill. So let's get into this. The main areas are going to be cooling, hot water, and the harvesting. And we've got 3 steps to improvement on this. And we're looking at using less energy, increasing energy efficiency, and getting the cheapest renewable source. Gab, why don't you take us through this, the first step of using less energy?
I mean, the first part of the 3-step process is really logical. It's all about having a look and seeing where's the energy being used, and are we wasting energy, or are there ways that we can reduce how much we actually use? And most of us can make a list of where energy is being wasted. And I think we always said, the things like turning off stuff. For example, air compressors. Often air compressors are used for, maybe just for milking, but they're often left on all day. The work that we've done showed that the dairy is maybe 80 to 90% of the energy used from air compressors is from leaks. And that occurs when they're every year, most air compressed air systems have leakage, And so by turning them off, you're minimising the runtime, but also the energy wasted and things leaking. Same with by sizing the equipment to suit the job that you want to do. Often we get a huge vacuum pump because we think we're going to extend the dairy. But that extension is in 5 or 6 years' time. In the meantime, we've used all that energy for a vacuum because we've got an oversized vacuum pump. The other thing to think about is the way you do things. And a really good, simple example is the way we wash our equipment and how much water we're using. And we'll talk a little bit more about ways that we can improve or change the way we use hot water. So reducing demand, the obvious things, we're also looking at waste, such as leaks and so forth. Here's a really simple example of dairy in Tassie. This is normal, typical dairy. The light that you see on the right-hand side photo, I said, how long is that left on for? Oh, that's on all the time. That's, to me, that's just waste. Another example is often you might see a vat that's on the outside, sort of exposed to the elements. Now, on the day that I was there, the vat inside the shed there with the roller door open, the outside temperature wasn't very warm, but the tank was 45 degrees. And that heat was being transferred into the vat, which needed them to be cooled. So we're using excess energy for that. Same as the vat on the outside with no exposure. Making sure that you got that's on the outside, put a roof over them and protect them from the sun. The last slide on the left is all about a cooling system and well insulated. The amount of heat that can be absorbed by the cooling system produces very good insulation. They're just simple things that you will see around the dairy that you can make simple improvements.
So we're talking just some simple things: turning lights off, putting a cover over your vat, and insulation. If I can add to the insulation one there, Gab, if you're seeing condensation on those cold lines, on your lines with the glycol, all that condensation takes a lot of energy, so you're losing energy. And secondly, you're creating an environment for more mold and mildew that you may want to clean up and things later. So insulation, getting that over there, really simple and easy to do. Usually about $5 to $10 a meter to install, and a payback of usually about 12 to 18 months on that one. A little bit on, let's talk heating water and how to not waste in the heating of water. We're going to get to how to make hot water more efficiently. But first of all, let's look at what we have and looking after that, Gab.
Yeah, so they're a really good example of what I call dinosaurs. They are really in the past. 30 years ago is amazingly the same tanks that were built 20 years ago are being sold today. Most dairies, or nearly all dairies, have these. You're either a Wilson or an instant hot water service. Fantastic for heating water, but they're not very efficient. And so, me, that's the legacy of the past. And they're built to a price, and then several dairies I found out that nearly 30% of the energy used there the water is actually lost through heat losses. The other thing to be wary of is the thermostats. The amount of people that I've seen that turn their thermostats to 110, because that's what it said on the dial. If you're seeing steam come from the top of the hot water service, it probably indicates that you're boiling the water. And to boil water, it's 554 times more energy to get water from 99 degrees to 100 degrees than this. The boiling hot water is a real indication of energy being lost or wasted. So what temperature should you use? Well, that depends on your wash program. But always make sure that if you read the label on the detergents, the detergent says use 95-degree hot water, then I would suggest that you need to hit around 90 degrees. That leaves you a bit of space to, because you will get heat loss as you're filling the wash button. So if you look at typical dairies, in some dairies we use say 1,200 litres of hot water a day. That's about 5, nearly 6 grand a year on heating water. And that's probably 30, 25 to 30% of the bill. But the important thing to note is that we have people with hot water services such as this use off-peak power, which means power at a cheaper rate. This system may not last. We're going to have to relook at how we heat water, and doing it the way that we're doing it now isn't going to cut it in terms of cost.
So, Gab, we're looking at maximum 90 degrees.
Yes.
Let's say if you've gone over that to achieve effective sterilisation, you probably should be doing more hot water, right? Getting another cylinder rather than just keep on increasing that temperature. And you'll be able to tell if you're wasting a lot of energy there. You'll see a lot of steam coming off and a lot of water being wasted there as well. Yeah.
And just a little point on that. Some people think the hotter the better. When you bring hot water in a milking system under vacuum, water will boil around 75 degrees. So if the water enters there and if the water is really hot, you end up getting steam in your milking system, which goes through the vacuum pump. That displaces the oil in the vacuum pump. You've got an oil in the vacuum pump, which will cause the veins to wear more, and you get a short life out of your vacuum pump. So there are downsides to having hot water too hot.
Don't go too hot. Gotcha. Let's move on to that next stage, Gab, where we're looking at. So we've first of all gone, okay, how can we reduce the amount of energy that we're using? Now we can look at the increase in that energy efficiency. And we've got, efficiency, achieving the same outcome using less, or productivity, achieving a better outcome using the same. Let's go through a couple of examples there, Gab.
Yeah. So let's look at how we can, improve efficiency. And so regular servicing is important. Many times that we don't do it. Like our vehicles, like anything, we need to maintain them. So if you've seen things like icing up on your refrigeration lines, means that you're wasting energy and the thing's not working correctly. So getting it serviced will pay back. Filters, now dairies are full of dust, road dust and feed dust. So making sure you clean filters on the regulators, and all, in terms of your regulators on the vacuum system, but also other filters such as on air compressors, particularly those that have air compressors to run AMS dairy with low stall gates and so forth. The third one is condensers. They're like a radiator, and they need lots of airflow for them to work. If the the condensers should always position somewhere where there's unrestricted airflow, and usually somewhere where it's shaded. So this really applies to when you're putting in a new system, make sure, if you can, replace the condenser and the refrigeration unit in that place where it's shaded, usually on a south facing area, not do it in the sun, and have the condenser somewhere where it's not going to get minimize the amount of dust that will collect on the condenser fins. They're three areas that often get overlooked. Installed about many years ago, and the condenser was near the feed the crusher, and the condenser got really mucked up with feed dust. Now that increased the cooling time on 12,000 litre about by 45 minutes each milking. When we clean the condenser, it saved 45 minutes of cooling time each milking. So that was a huge difference. So it just demonstrates the importance of having clean condensers and clean filters.
Absolutely, Gavin. I'll concur there. The dairy farmer was out last week, spider webs and dust all over that condenser. It's about a 10-minute job to get there, to take the grate off and brush that down with a short handle brush, making sure you're not going to cut yourself on those fins. They can be quite sharp. 10-minute job, and we had that thing looking like new, and that would greatly improve that the heat transfer there and the efficiency of that refrigeration system. Yeah, what do we do with the vats here? What can we do on the vats?
Okay, here's a really opinion. I want to admit that took me that 20 years to actually for the penny to drop on this move. So a bit slow sometimes, but if you look at a normal, everyone's got a vat. Everyone has and most people have got a vat which is automated. In other words, it's got a control system. You just press the button. Now, when the vat is empty, for those of us that skip a day or every day, also people that every day pick up, when the vat is empty, when we come into milk, we turn on the milk vat, there's usually a cooling delay. And that cooling delay is set by the person that has installed the vat. And in general default is usually 20 minutes to 30 minutes for most people.
So there we go.
Well,
That's the first one on the milking. That's on the energy efficiency. We're gonna dive a bit deeper now on cooling, and we talk a little bit about pre-cooling. So we know that cooling of milk around 25-35%, maybe up to 40% of your energy usage. So this is the big one, that and the hot water. Let's dive into that one. Let's give this some context. So I think most people would have pre-cooling now using cooling water from your dam, your river, or what other source. And just to let you know how much that does save. So if we take an example here, if we went up from 2 million or so, let me just get a point out for us. We went from 2 million litres per annum. If you took that up to the line there and bring that across, about $225 per year per degree of improvement for your pre-cooling. So Gab's going to take us through what that means to get that good result. But yeah, if you keep that in mind, it's around about that for 2 million litres, about $225 per degree of improvement, or call it 110, 115 if you're around 1 million litres per annum. Gab, what do we need to do to check that that's being done right in the pre-cool as well?
okay, the cheapest way by far, the cheapest way of using a play cooler and using, you know, the coldest water you can find. So the first thing you need to think about is, where is the water coming from to cool the milk? And for example, if you're using water from a dam, make sure that the suction line is near the bottom of the dam, not at the top. If you're using a concrete tank, for example, or a poly tank, and then recirculating into the tank, then you'll find that over the course of milking, that water in the tank get warmer and warmer, which means that you're going to end up, your cooling performance will be reduced, and therefore you spend more money on the work will be done by the refrigeration. So the first thing is to think about where the water is coming from, and is at the coldest point or source. Second thing to think about is, okay, it's going through a plate cooler, but is it actually working? The easiest way to check is to look at the water going in, so what temperature is the water going in? Let's say it's 18 degrees, and therefore, if it's 18 degrees, the milk should be entering the vat around 20, 21 degrees. If that's not happening, then you've got a pre-cooling issue. So obvious things to look at. Here's one which I did an order on a farm a couple of years ago. This time, the water and the milk were flowing in the same direction, which reduced the performance of that, or the effectiveness of that play cool. The milk pump, the play cool pump's still running. We're not doing a very good job. In fact, the temperature difference is 10 degrees. That was the same. So by correcting it, we worked out that we would save around $1,350 a year based on those figures from a few years ago. So the thing was, that cooler was installed 20 years earlier. Imagine the money that's been lost. That hasn't been working. So the simple thing to take your flow in the opposite directions, make sure the water is as cold as possible. So let's quickly run. So if you go in industrial play cool, which is the bigger ones, you should, the water should be flowing roughly 2 times the flow rate. The water should be at least twice that of the milk flow rate. If you got an old clay cooler, it should be 3 times the milk flow rate. The difference between the water going in and the milk coming out should be 2 degrees on an industrial clay cooler, or 3 degrees on an older style one. And for every million litres of milk that you're producing, for every 1 degree improvement, so let's say the difference is 5 degrees, getting it to 4 degree difference across the year will save you about $110. So once again, it's $1,000 if you save 5 degrees on every million litres of milk. So it's a very easy get, but surprisingly, I've been doing on now for 30 years that improving, checking your clay cooler, making sure it's working. And surprisingly, still we find so many farms where it's not good because the farm doesn't know, because they don't have simple measures. And a simple measure is having a temperature strip, putting one the water in and one milk out. You can buy them from, if you go to your local pet suppliers, they might have fish tank. They're like a fish tank strip. And very quickly they'll tell you how your clay cooler is performing. And if it's more than 2 or 3 degrees, then it's either dirty or the flow rates are wrong or the flow directions are wrong. One of those 3 things, unless, of course, it's undersized.
And Gab, exactly what I saw at a farm here last year. This is a thermal image of a double bank heat exchanger. So you've got your pre-cooling section here shown in the lighter color there, where it's hotter, and then you've got a glycol. I actually think this was an ice water chilling in the second section of the milk cooler. And we absolutely saw that, Gab, we saw that we put the temperature thermometers on, and we saw the temperature of the cooling water coming in. I think it was around about 16 degrees. But we noticed that the milk cooling being done by that cooling water was very little. And you could actually see when you zoom in on the top half of the heat exchanger. So the milk has gone through the pre-cooling section, it's worked its way up, it goes across the top here and then down into every second channel on this chiller section. And we see that the temperature was really not going down much at all. And after asking a few more questions, we got to the bottom of it pretty quickly. So what had happened a few years ago, the pump that was being used to recirculate water through the pre-cooler broke down. It was replaced with a smaller pump, so it wasn't getting the flow rate needed. And so it had the opportunity, when they change it back to a proper size pump, probably getting somewhere around about 10 degrees extra cooling with that the right flow rate there. So this is really good, easy money there. When you've got that double bank, it's a little bit harder to test what temperature it's coming out from the pre-cooler, but what it is also simple as well. It's not as straightforward as if it's standalone, but simply test. You turn off the glycol or chilled water flow, and then you'll see what temperature the milk is going to the vat with, either with your stick-on thermometer or your current thermometer setups that you have, and then you'll be able to see exactly what that pre-cooler is doing. But yeah, great way to tweak your cooling costs there and save thousands as well.
So can I just go back one slide?
Absolutely.
So with what you just said, which is great, so you turn off the chiller end, therefore you know what temperature the milk leaves the first bank. Then what you can do is then turn on your chiller and see what temperature the milk leaves after the chiller. And once again, it should be after the second bank. Therefore, it should still be 2 degrees within within 2 degrees of the coolant going into the second tank. So therefore, you check the first tank and the second tank. That's very important. Don't make all the work. Don't put all the work on the second tank because that costs you more money.
Absolutely. Gab, let's talk hot water. A great resource and really a cost-effective way to achieve sterilisation and a clean plant. I have seen sites where they don't spend very much on hot water. They spend a lot on chemicals. You can definitely save money by getting your hot water system right and reduce the amount of chemicals that you use. And just to give a bit of a flavour here, let's say you've got, we'll follow the chart again. If you're using about 1,200 litres per day and your electricity cost is 20 cents a kilowatt hour, follow the graph up here and over to the right, and that'll give you that cost of about $7,500 per year just to create hot water. And that's on your daily usage there. And a few assumptions there. I'm assuming you're going to 82 degrees from an average of 15. But if you're using something like LPG, that's going to be even higher in costs there. Gab, how can we save them some money on hot water production?
Okay, now before we talk, let's get real here. The issue is the question of our many farmers is why are you using hot water? Now look at me like I'm new here because they say we need hot water because that's why we can clean and sterilise the plant or sanitize the plant. But the reality is we don't really need hot water, which by hot water I mean 90-degree water. Certainly it was the case 30 years ago when a chemical was less sophisticated and off-peak power was really cheap and hot water was really cheap. So the days of 3 cents per kilowatt were off-peak as they were in 1997 are gone. But now we've got off-peak power around 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, even 20 cents per kilowatt. So the question we need to ask ourselves, which is not, we can't do that today, but it's another session, is can we change our wash program so that our reliance on hot water is diminished? And that allow them to look at the cost of washing the equipment, and we look at chemicals versus hot water. That's another subject. Let's assume, okay, we still need to use hot water. And by hot water, we're talking about 85 to 90 degrees water being delivered. So, as I said before, the traditional hot water services are very like dinosaurs. Great in the past, they're good now. There are better ways to improve or lower the cost of heating water. The first thing to do is to look at ways that you can reduce the demand for heating. In other words, can we, instead of heating water from 20 degrees or 80 degrees to 90 degrees, can we heat it from, say, 45 degrees to 90 degrees? And one ways that we can do that are things like solar hot water and heat recovery units. They're an easy way of it, particularly solar hot water for those dairies that are north of the Great Divide, New South Wales, Queensland, WA also, where there's low sunlight most of the year. Solar hot water is a really good way of reducing the cost of heating. need to improve the efficiency of heating. And one way of doing it is using a commercial heat pump. Commercial heat pumps, now these are heat pumps been around for 20 or 30 years. Now, the difference between them and old and the traditional way is every unit of energy we use on a heat pump, we get nearly 5 times the amount of heating of water heating than what we do with the traditional one. So remember, with the traditional unit, for every unit of energy, we got almost 1 unit of heating. Yet for a heat pump, you get 5 times more. The other good thing about the commercial heat is that they're really well insulated. So those heat losses are going to be less. So usually with a heat pump, you're going to save around 75% of the energy that you traditionally use. Therefore, you're still achieving your hot water. And these commercial heat pumps, they heat water to around 85 degrees, depending on the type of heat pump. And those heat pumps usually want to work on CO2 as the refrigerant, which have other environmental benefits.
And
It's very important.
we do need to note here as well, you mentioned commercial.
Yes,
You mentioned these are commercial heat pumps, and that is
yes,
quite a difference to what was installed around 2010. Many dairy farms installed heat pumps back then, but they were mainly domestic hot water systems,
yes.
domestic hot water heat pumps, really not designed for the dairy conditions. We understand there's still a lot of farms using those old domestic style, and then they've got the good 10 or 15 years out of them. But we do see the next generation, obviously, is this commercial one, much more robust, much better at handling different water qualities and things like that as well. Gab, I'll keep moving to make sure we stay on time here. And just to wrap up a little bit about on hot water consumption. So an example for you, I've used 1,000 litres just so it's easier for you to scale. If you're using 500 litres instead, then just sort of chop these numbers in half or so. So if you have using 1,000 litres, let's call that $7,000 per year. If you were to install solar PV, that would effectively give you about half the cost for your electricity. So the input, so that cuts it in half. You could do a heat recovery, and that'll reduce about 40% by recovering heat, say, from your refrigeration system. You could do a heat pump, and as Gab mentioned, about 75% or so reduction there. So there's a nice return there. And overall, you'd expect around about 4 to 6 years, give or take. Unusual that you'd be less than 1 or 2 years payback, but think about 4 to 6 years, which is still a pretty reasonable rate of return there. And so there's a nice little graph there you can follow. You might be on the on the solid line, and then you can move down, so to the dotted line with heat recovery, and then you can calculate your savings there for whatever your hot water usage is. Let's move to the final area, Gab, and we're talking about harvesting, and that is really dominated by the vacuum pump. And Gab, you've got a really good case here of an upgrade of a vacuum pump delivering some nice returns there for a farmer.
Say 50 unit rotary with a 9 kilowatt motor on the vacuum pump. It's a lobe vacuum pump, and you can see here on the chart that they're using somewhere around 50 kilowatt hours per day to run 2 milkings. On the 5th of February, the change occurred where the VSC was installed and then it reduced by 50%. So you got a 50% saving. That equate. This is back 2 years ago, so the saving was around $1,500 a year. It was 3.8 years. 3.8 year payback. So once again, less energy to achieve the same outcome. So very easy to get. With just a point, in terms of scale of energy, how energy hungry vacuum pumps are. If you go a watering vacuum pump, they're the most energy hungry. The next one is the oil ring vacuum pump, and the low vacuum pump will be the least or the least of the three types of vacuum pumps in terms of energy requirements. So, and the good thing about the low vacuum pumps is you save on oil if you got an oil ring vacuum. Another just quick one before we move on. Another way of looking at it is if you've got a lot of effective reserve, that you know that from your machine test. If you've got excessive effective reserve, then there's huge opportunities for making savings for your VSD.
So if you're coming from the oil, you're going to have some really big saving potential there. If I add another little analogy in there with when you're changing to a VSD, if your current setup without the VSD, it's like driving a car with your foot flat on the accelerator and adjusting your speed by then just pumping the brake. When you change to VSD, then you get that analog accelerator and you target the speed with that one. And so that's what that does and gives you some great efficiency boost there. Gab, we've gone through how we're using the energy. Let's look at how we optimize the energy supply. Solar PV, the obvious one there. It's around about 50% of farms or so have already installed solar PV. Most are getting 20 to 30 kilowatt systems. Quite a few are getting larger systems than that. And certainly what we're seeing, and I think what you're seeing as well, Gab, is quite a few are not getting the results that they hope for. And obviously that's because of the production not matching when the energy is needed. So if we look at a typical dairy farm electricity demand profile there, this is a typical setup where virtually really not much electricity required during the day. And you see this one looks like it's set up to create its hot water at night. That's why you've got that 10 kilowatt or so peak overnight. But then most of the energy being used for the cooling in the morning, the afternoon, right on when you don't have that demand there. So not an optimal situation straight up, but there's certainly ways you can optimize this. Yep.
Yeah, I see a lot of people putting the PV system because they were attracted by the feeding tariffs. The feeding tariffs now are almost 5 cents or 3 cents or whatever they are. But the economics doesn't work. And so with all that power in the middle of the day available, you need to shift our thinking and seeing what can we do, what loads can we operate during the day. And a good example is water heating. As you can see on the right hand side, at 10:30 at night, we've got that load. Why can't we shift that load to the middle of the day and get it covered by the PV? That's a simple get. So therefore, instead of paying 18 cents or 14 cents off peak, we're going to be paying 6 or 7 cents from our PV system. So,
An absolute must.
It's all about shifting your loads. And the other point there is that having loads that are small So, for example, if we shifted our big dinosaurs, those two dinosaurs that we saw in the pictures earlier, they would require 36 kilowatts of power to run, whereas a heat pump, the input power is about 5 kilowatts. So therefore, a smaller system will cover that load most of the time, most of the year.
Indeed. So you're running the heat pump, you don't need to draw from the grid. It'll be nice and efficient. You'll be able to serve that with a reasonable sized solar PV system. We've been
And the good thing about
you.
and the good thing dairy farmers, if you just go back one slide for a second, the good thing about it is if you look at the graph, dairy farmers are so predictable because that's taken for 1 year, every day of the week. And look, you predictable, it's the same every day. That's why it's so easy to do things differently to match load.
Absolutely. I mentioned we've been reviewing a fair few different systems and noticed a couple of issues we thought would be worthwhile mentioning today. The first one we've got is that over investment, especially with these low export or low feed-in tariff ones, and the sites that have installed a 100 kilowatt system and looks like that's going to be not much utilized on site, and a fair bit needs to be exported, and those feed-in tariffs seem to be coming down and down. So yeah, that's a case of getting that right sizing there. The next common problem we see is this ratio of the inverter to the panel. So two main components. You've got the solar panels that you see there, which creates a DC current, DC electricity, and you need those inverters to create it to AC so your motors and things can use it. And so that's the main components of your solar system. And the comment there that the panels should be 33% larger than the inverter. If you're just installing exactly the same, a 60 kilowatt lot of panels with a 60 kilowatts worth of inverters, you're certainly not getting the right return on investment there. A little bit of wasted dollars. Thirdly, I mentioned is the incorrect installation. It really seems quite common that something has gone wrong in the installation, whether the panels aren't all properly plugged in or the inverter's hooked up incorrectly. A little bit hard to tell, but we'll try and give you a few tips on that one. If you go to your inverter application on your phone or on the net and shows you the power output, and by the way, that is one of our main tips, is making sure you get a good quality inverter which allows you and gives you that information. You can see this is a profile of the solar PV production through summer, and where this is a nice clear sunny day. And you'll see that this is for 60 kilowatts of solar panels and 60 kilowatts of inverters, that in this case, it really doesn't even use the maximum capacity of the panels. And ideally, what you would have in the middle of summer is probably maxing out around about 11 o'clock till 1 o'clock. And if you had, say, 50 kilowatt of inverter. So this extra few $1,000s, which was spent on the inverters to go from, say, 45, 50 kilowatts up to 60, very, very little extra production would come from that. So you spend a couple of $1,000 too much on inverters, which could have gone into your back pocket to do better things. So just something to keep in mind. Solar panels, 33% more of the capacity than your inverters. There may be some special cases where you don't want to do that, but it's a really good rule of thumb. Next one to consider is, how do you check the performance? I mentioned before about poor connections and errors in installation. I can tell you when you're looking at this, your system on a cloudy winter's day, very difficult to be able to tell the performance is meeting the expectations here. you'll see, again, this is from a 60 kilowatt system. It's 40 kilowatts sort of in the morning, and almost in the middle of the day, you're down to only 10 kilowatts as the clouds come over. So from looking at it like this, you really can't assess, or not easy to assess, that you're getting the right performance and it's all connected up correctly. Gab's going to take us through a holistic way to look at it on a yearly basis. But what in a short-term individual one, and certainly what I recommend is on that sunny day, when you've got a beautiful sunshine, that's when you have a look at your graph and make sure that this is getting very close to that maximum performance for your inverter and what have you. And if you're not reaching that, and here's a case of that happening, then something's gone wrong with your system. This is a system where we've had 6 kilowatts of solar panels, 6 kilowatt of inverter, and you'll see on a very nice sunny day, still only achieving 3 kilowatts of output. Now, this is not uncommon. This happens quite often, and this is a mistake of how we believe how the way the inverter was connected here. You'll see that the production is coming up pretty quickly to at 8 o'clock in the morning, already reaching 3 kilowatts. So this looks like the panels. All the panels are well connected and they're going into the inverter, but then something's wrong with the way that inverter is set up, or the way it's connected, and it's only putting out 3 kilowatts there. So missing a lot of energy production there. So wait for that. You got that sunny day, check that and make sure that that energy production in kilowatts is very close to what was specified. Gab, otherwise, I mean, this is usually all about the dollars, isn't it? You know, I'll check my bill to make sure I'm getting the money. How do we do that? Let's keep moving, Gab. So we've got time for questions at the end. We've only want to finish our slides in 5 minutes and plenty of time for questions. I'm going to jump over this one and just give you a few little quick tips. We mentioned about matching your energy demand with the energy production from the solar. This is one way you can do some checks there. So if you just had a resistance, electric resistance, a hot water system, and you're using somewhere between 500 and 1,000 litres of hot water per day, a 20 to 30 kilowatt system is going to be a fairly good size and going to be able to deliver the majority of the energy for that 500 to 1,000 litres per day of hot water. If you've got a heat pump, you can use a smaller system. It may be best for you to invest a little bit more in a heat pump and a little bit smaller solar system. You may not have the space to put a big solar system in on your existing roof, or the way these things are set up. So yeah, maybe it's worthwhile then you do a heat pump. If you can utilize the idea of cold storage and ice bank, a really big tank of glycol, then maybe another 10 kilowatts or so to the solar panel system as well. So there's just a little bit of an easy guide, an easy way to size it, and some ideas of making sure you don't overinvest there. And a couple of quick tips to finish off with here. 40 kilowatt system and say around Victoria, good decision. If you go above that 40 kilowatt system, you start having an extra $12,000 or so for connection fees and what have you. So that reduces your return on investment. We do recommend going with a really well-proven supplier, one that's been around for many years, and one that's more likely to come to farm and check out your installation. And we think we'll get much better advice if they're willing to do that. In a perfect world, you'd have half the panels facing east, half of them facing west, and that way you'd maximize the time that the solar production's available for when you're milking. But if they can't do that, then facing north is absolutely fine. Inverter, making sure that you've got a good quality one, put that inside and not out in the elements, and make sure you look after that. That's a big chunk of the investment here. And make sure it's got some sort of energy monitoring. And that usually means it's a Wi-Fi enabled inverter, so you can get the data from that. And finally, as I mentioned a few times, those panels should be about 33% bigger than the inverter. Otherwise, you're probably putting too much into the inverter. Yeah, let's wrap it up in the last few minutes here. We've gone through the different ways to look at it. So reducing your energy demand, improving energy efficiency, and getting the best renewable source of energy that you can. And this really comes through as well, looking at making sure you're monitoring and fine-tuning and reassessing where you're at. Gab, this is one way to overview. Have a look here. Take us through this one.
The quick thing, if you don't know, you don't know. So you need to know. So having mechanisms to check the temperatures and performance is pretty good. And so monitoring system is important. They can be sophisticated like this one, or they can be simple. The other thing you can do is making sure there's other devices, displays of taking the cost of power. Once again, you need ones that provide information so you can monitor them. Otherwise, an example of easy, we often had systems that hadn't been turned on after 5 years, and people didn't realise. So, temperature strips, digital readouts, you can get sophisticated with monitoring systems. You go to another slide. Jarrod, next slide, please.
This is if I wrap this one up here, Gab. We've got a few recommendations for how to check easy and better and best sort of performance here. The very easiest you can do is download the energy app from your energy retailer. Get that on your phone, and if you've got the smart meter, then within 24 hours you'll be able to see what your energy use was for the previous day. So each time you make a change, you go out there and you're cleaning your condenser coils, you can check the next day the actual energy reduction there, as well as obviously seeing how much the chiller time is reduced. There's other options available. You've got watches systems with a symbol. You've got ArcoFlex and a few others as well, all with their own different sort of features. But I'd say that the reason for doing this is to actually make sure that those investments are paying off for you, and you can give yourself a pat on the back to say that was time well spent. If you're a large energy user, the absolute best investment is getting that on-farm energy audit. Lots of service providers, very much like CAB, come to site and let you know exactly where that energy is and benchmark each different process against best practice, and they'll be the ones that tell you there. Now, look, in summary, we'd like to think we've shown you lots of ways here today and to save many thousands of dollars. And so just good maintenance, cleaning up and stopping leaks, $500 a year at least on that one. You get that cooling system optimized, you should be looking at about $1,000, and make sure you have a look at that pre-cooler and it's working well. For your hot water production, you can really go a long way with the things like heat pumps and those commercial heat pumps, saving $4,000, $5,000 a year. And then you can look at that vacuum pump and changing that to VSD, maybe $1,500 a year or so there. So overall, you're putting this all together with solar, there should be some really good reduction in your energy bills and help you with the bottom line with good return on investment. Before we go to and wrap things up and get over towards questions, I've given a little bit of a summary here of that return on investment versus the sort of ease of implementation. And you'll see things like metering and monitoring is often the easiest one. It's pretty easy to implement, and the return on investment because of the insight is pretty high. Down the bottom, I do have batteries there. Fairly easy to implement, but the return on investment is typically very low unless you're looking at achieving much better reliability, loss of product and things like that. But purely from an energy savings point of view, to get more out of your solar PV, I think most of experience that we've seen and numbers we've seen, you're not going to get much of a return on battery just on that alone. So that will give you a bit of a flavor, and again, you'll see these slides are going to be emailed out to everyone, so you can certainly refer to these later and check on those. Lots of other resources out there. There's the wonderful Saving Energy on Dairy Farms from Dairy Australia. That one's in progress of being updated. A really healthy booklet, and gives actually more details on what we've been talking about today, so you can read through on that one. If you're interested in air source heat pumps, there's a nice section in this guide here, Commercial and Industrial Air Source Heat Pump Water Heaters, that A2EP put together with Victorian government. Nice little guide there on dairy farm heat pumps. There's also some new publications from New South Wales farmers on energy efficiency case studies and energy productivity for dairy farms. So lots of further reading if you want to get into some more details. Yeah, that's pretty much it from us today. We'll invite questions on things like these topics. I'll come back to that in a moment. But I was hoping we thought we'd take this opportunity and just do maybe a little bit quick poll for the audience and get some Q&A started. First question I've got, and hopefully you'll be able to fill this in directly from your screen in front. If not, you could take your smartphone and open the camera up and put it over that QR code on the top left there, and that if you press on the link there that comes up, you'll be able to go to the Slido webpage and enter in your results there. But hopefully we'll give it a minute or so. You'd like to just let us know, to give us a bit of a flavour of who we have in the audience here today and your energy costs, and that way we can tailor any answers that we have over the next 15 minutes to what sort of energy costs you are there. Hopefully that's you're able to do that. We'll leave that another minute or so, or 30 seconds. We'll see what comes through there. I don't know if anyone's able to complete that one. And by the way, if you're not sure on your energy costs, that's fine. There's a lot of farms that aren't too sure on that one. We do see it most common, it seems like around that $10,000 to $20,000, but it'd be good to get some feedback there. Not sure if anyone's able to enter that. Gab, are you able to complete that one? Just do a bit of a test for us.
Yep. Let's go.
This should be working. I don't know if that was you there, Gab, 10 to 20, but if not, we've got at least one answer there. Maybe some people have not sure on their bill. We might keep things moving and see if anyone has some thoughts on maybe some first action you'll take following this this presentation. Anyone got some ideas and like to give us some feedback on some action they may take, general energy efficiency improvements related to cleaning? Oh, you're going to get me nervous. This is not working there, Gab. If it's not working, we'll stop this.
It's
Open it up. Working for at least one. I'll just check the chat to see if anyone's said something in there to say if that's a problem. Okay. Couple of questions in there we can get us moving there. Gab, maybe that Slido is not working for us. Why don't we we'll quit that one and bring on this one and see if there's any questions there. So we've got a good 12 minutes left for a few questions to be answered there. I see there's one here in the a couple here in the chat box. Feel free to type them in or to raise your hand, enter it in the Q&A there. Let's have a look at some questions we have here. Wind turbines and results. I've heard generically at different sites, and small wind turbines. What I'm hearing is problematic and not the best on return on investment. Certainly, we saw from Ellenbank, and speaking to the guys at Ellenbank recently, they have not had a great experience with their horizontal wind turbine, with that one collapsing and having trouble getting warranties on that one. But overall, they're saying from what they've invested in and what they're demonstrating, the results is not a great return on investment. I think they're 20 or 30 years sort of payback there. Gab, any thoughts on wind turbines?
Well, wind turbines are an issue purely because the resource in terms of information flows well available, because unlike solar, where we can get a very good indication of future performance, we can't do that with wind unless we do wind mapping. And wind, the issue for us is location. Now, we often don't have the granular detail for each site. So the first thing, the second thing, of course, is getting value for money in terms of the power supply for the dairy. Small turbines just don't give you the return on investment.
Yep. So yeah, we're not going to be advocating for that one in a hurry there. There was a question there about best suppliers for solar PV, and yes, Gab, you've said tier 1 suppliers only, and you can look on that CEFC website for a list of suppliers there. We don't want to lock anyone in for specific suppliers here at the moment.
So the other thing that I will mention, and we'll make sure that we send the email out specifically to all registered people for this webinar, is that the new improved energy savings on dairy farms booklets that A2EP have put together and will be shortly posted to the DA website, does include where we can, while maintaining appropriate the appropriate level of advice for DA. We have provided some guidance on what questions to ask your suppliers, where you might find suitable suppliers, There's a stack of links in there to YouTube videos that will give you a lot more specific guidance as well. So you won't just be relying on what you've learnt today, or even just on the slides from today's webinar. I really do recommend to you that new energy savings booklet, and that will help you delve in some more detail into these things, what to ask your supplier, how to find a good one, what to look out for, and help you calculate what the savings you might be able to achieve in your particular business.
Perfect. Thanks, Elissa. Yes, we look forward to that one coming out. Any other questions there? Feel free again, you type them into the chat box or put them in the Q&A. Happy to take your questions in.
While we're waiting for questions, can I say that simple things like having a temperature gauge on your heat recovery tank or your solar water tank or your heat pump tank is critical. But then you know how much, whether it's working. So if your solar water is only 30 degrees and it's a warm sunny day, you know that it's not working. So often we see the systems being installed with no temperature gauges. You never know. So that's an easy thing to request. And have put in, particularly at the time of installation.
Gotcha. Nice one. Thanks, Gab. So everyone's unmuted. If you'd like to ask a question, feel free. We usually get a lot of questions on batteries. I was waiting for more questions on batteries. Seems to come up every time. Other ones that I've been through up there before. Oh, here we go. Someone's come off mute, please.
Yeah, it's Glenn Gagan. Jarrod, how are you, Gabby? Just on batteries, it's interesting because initially I was thinking I should put in a big battery, but then I thought when I saw how much energy I got on the house, this is just on my house, how much energy I got over the summer, whether it'd be better off starting with the small ones so that when the power went out, at least I had a backup and I could disconnect from the grid.
Yeah, I think
just throwing that out there.
You've hit the nail on the head there, Glenn. You're talking about for backup. If for reliability, yeah, you're at the end of a very long swirl line and you're losing power regularly, batteries are I'd say it would be a nice thing. I mean, you can do this, you know, if you've already got a diesel generator and you're just using it a few hours. That's doing the job sort of for now. But if you want to do the maybe more environmental way, and you also find with a battery, if you set up correctly, you'll do a little bit, you know, more value out of your solar PV. But really, this is about reliability at the moment. That
I think we really make sure we don't get stars in our eyes and follow these rainbows. And batteries are fantastic, but not as they remember all the battery is to reduce the cost of energy by capturing solar energy and storing it when you use it. And currently it's very expensive to do that. So using batteries on dairies is very expensive because we have huge loads and the battery won't cover all our load. So what we can hope to do is to do what they call peak swapping, so we can swap the peak off. But using batteries to run a dairy, even for a short period, is very, very expensive. So let's be sensible.
If you don't have these,
I thought we could probably just use it to cool the milk or something like that.
Yeah, but we can also use a genset as well.
Yeah, true.
You got to look at these productivity benefits. It's usually the non-energy benefits which is going to make the battery work. So if if that saves you getting up at 2 a.m. to start up a diesel generator, then you might say this is nice because the battery will kick in automatically, and you think, yeah, okay, if I find myself doing this more than a few times a year and I can get some better rest, hey, there could well be some value there for you.
Yeah, that's
Stephen. Hello, Stephen.
Hi guys, how are you?
Yeah, going well. Got a question for us?
Just a simple bit of advice from the questions that have just been asked. The order you do things in is clear. Become efficient. You put solar in and use as much of it as you can. And then if you need a battery, use it. But typically the comments that were said were right. It's more about whether you've got reliable power than whether you're trying to save costs.
Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Very good. Well, we're pretty much to the end. We've got time for one more question. Let's see if anyone else comes off mute there. Not seeing that happen. We hope this gives you a really good understanding of where the energy is being used on your farm and some really quick and easy gains there. Lots of resources out there, but it's about prioritizing what needs to be done. And you'll see these ones of reducing energy and the maintenance more likely to have the better paybacks and return on investment. And you'll see that little graph that we presented there, trying to give you a feel for where's the best bang for your buck. And I really hope that helps. Gabriel Hakim, thank you so much for joining me today. Lovely to see you again. And lovely to have your many years of insight shared today. Much appreciated. Elissa, many thanks for sponsoring this. It's a fabulous piece of work to do and to help farmers out with these increasing electricity prices. If we can shave off a few $1,000s per year for them, then I think we've done our job. So that for those of you that joined us today, thank you so much. And for those of you watching the recording, thank you for going in. And please do, when you get the recording here, you'll get a copy with that and with the slides later in the week. Please share that amongst your friends and what have you, and share that on the socials because we're pretty sure this will be able to save some farmers some good money here and really help out. So thanks
so much, Jarrod. And I just wanted to mention that the webinar the recording of the webinar will also be hosted on Dairy Australia's website. So if you lose any emails from this, don't panic. You will still have another avenue to find this recorded and very helpful information.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a very pleasant afternoon, and we look forward to the next webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.